In the years before World War I in Europe, the Futurists, the Orphists, and the Rayonists all believed that a new form of art was needed for changing society. Although their theories were not the same, they all pushed painting in the direction of totally abstract art. Futurism emerged at a time when Italy was undergoing a difficult period of social and political adjustment, caught between the outdated social structures of its past and the modernizing challenges of the present. Origins and influences. In his founding manifesto, printed on the cover of France's Le Figaro newspaper in 1909, Filippo Marinetti's glorification of technology, speed, dynamism, and war signaled the birth of one of the noisiest and most aggressive avant-garde movements. Its call to arms based on art plus action plus life futurism attracted a nucleus of painters, including Boccioni, Balla, Severini, Carra, and Russolo. Inspired by the ideas of the French philosopher Henri Bergson, they saw dynamism as the principal force behind everything. Subject and technique. The Futurist manifestos outlined a desire to capture this invisible energy. The gesture which we would reproduce on canvas shall no longer be a fixed moment. It shall simply be the dynamic sensation itself. Futurists aim to connect with as many people as possible by creating a barrage of constant publicity through manifestos, lectures, exhibitions, and happenings, a form of performance intended to provoke the audience. The Futurists in Paris, 1912, Gino Severini introduced the Futurists to the Paris scene. From left to right, Luigi Russolo, Carlo Carra, F.T. Marinetti, Umberto Boccioni, and Gino Severini. Futurism, Orphism and Rayonism. Timeline. Early Futurist art, such as Giacomo Balla's street lamp, shows the influence of neo-impressionist artists Seurat and Signac. By 1912, French artists like Robert Delaunay were conveying the dynamism of modern life, while the Rayonist Mikhail Larionov was trying to depict not so much objects, but the relations between them. Later Futurist paintings, such as Umberto Boccioni's Charge of the Lancers, were strongly influenced by Cubism. 1909-11 Balla, Street Lamp. 1912, Delaunay, Windows Opened Simultaneously. 1914, Carra, Interventionist Manifestation. 1915, Boccioni, The Charge of the Lancers. 1916, Larionov Rayonist Composition. Interpretations. As the art capital of the world, it was no surprise that Paris was the city in which Futurism emerged, nor that its development overlapped with that of Cubism, with which it broke away from traditional methods of representation. Across Europe, exposure to these new styles provoked a flurry of other avant-garde movements, including Rayonism in Russia, and Vorticism in Britain. Futurism. The Futurist painters proclaimed themselves the primitives of a new and transformed sensibility. Since their early technique was incapable of portraying the dynamic, modern world they lived in, they combined some elements of neo-impressionism such as pointillist brushwork with photographic analysis, and the fractured forms of Cubism. Replacing the Cubist static subject matter with city life, nightlife, and movement, they added their own pictorial devices, such as unnaturalistic color to heighten the impact of the work on the viewer, and force lines to convey movement and draw the viewer into the picture. In the later, more abstract phase, 1913 to 1916, the Futurists turned to sculpture and collage sculptures. With the death of some of its leading members in the war, the movement fizzled out, although a second wave of Futurism which had always praised violence and war was closely associated with fascism. Orphism. Orphism was a term coined by the critic Guillaume Apollinaire in 1912, after the poet Orpheus, to describe a more colorful and abstract form of Cubism associated with music that presented new structures out of elements that have been created entirely by the artist himself. It referred mainly to the work of Robert Delaunay and his wife Sonia, who were inspired by complementary color theory to develop increasingly abstract paintings based around color blocks and discs. Seen as a key advance towards abstraction, it was a major influence on der Blaue Reiter in Germany. Rayonism. Rayonism was a short-lived Russian movement founded by Mikhail Larionov and his partner Natalia Goncharova, which attempted to synthesize the discoveries of Cubism, Futurism, and Orphism into a single artistic language. It provided a crucial step in the development of Russian abstract art. Wishing to present the dynamic energy, which may arise from the intersection of reflected rays of light from different objects, their paintings were characterized by rhythmically interacting shafts of color. Development of a Bottle in Space. Umberto Boccioni, as the title of this 1912 work suggests, Boccioni's sculpture is preoccupied with the interaction between objects and the space around them. 1912, bronze, height 38 centimeters, Mattioli Collection, Milan, Italy. Les Tours de Léon Robert Delaunay. The vibrancy of this work is typical of early Orphism and very different to the Impressionist paintings of the cathedral that Delaunay had produced only a few years earlier. 1912, oil on canvas. Pompidou Center, Paris, France. Giacomo Balla. B. Turin, 1871, D. Rome, 1958. Giacomo Balla was the oldest, most naturally inventive, and least bombastic of the Futurists. After staying in Paris at the end of the 19th century, where he was influenced by the Neo-Impressionists, Balla moved to Rome, where his pupils included Severini and Boccioni. His continually evolving style progressed via divisionism and dynamism, towards increasing abstraction and expansive plastic forms, which, according to the Futurist manifesto, were inspired by the dynamic forces of the universe. After 1915, Balla's growing obsession with new technology, in particular stop-motion photography, led to a series of quasi-scientific studies of movement. These involved repetition and superimposition of the image, like successive stills from a film. Lifeline. 1871, born in Turin, 1895, moves to Rome, works as an illustrator and painter, 1900 to 2001, exhibitions in Italy and Germany, moves to Paris, 1901, settles in Rome, teaches Severini and Boccioni, 1909, produces the first Futurist painting, Streetlight, 1910, signs Futurist Manifesto, 1912, Paris show Dog on a Leash. 1914, starts sculpting, explores more abstract color forms, 1958, dies in Rome. Swifts, Paths of Movement plus Dynamic Sequences. This painting belongs to a series in which Balla set out to capture the dynamic sensation of bird flight. It represents a more fluid expression of movement than his earlier work. 1913, oil on canvas, 97 by 120 centimeters, MoMA, New York, U.S. Closer look. Influence of photography. Balla recreates the bird's speed and movement by tracing out complex lines of flight, which snake across the canvas against an architectural backdrop. The closely spaced sequences of repeated arcs, representing each wing flap, are based on the stop-motion chronophotography of Etienne Jules Méry. The gesture which we would reproduce on canvas shall simply be the dynamic sensation itself. Manifesto of Futurist Painters, 1910. Streetlight. Inspired by Rome's first electric street lamps, Balla took Marinetti's words to heart about killing the moonlight. Here he replaces dots with brightly colored chevrons in order to contrast the forceful rays of electric light with the feeble glow of the moon. 1909-11, oil on canvas, 175 by 115 centimeters, MoMA, New York, U.S.